But to me, any dude, regardless, that talks about another man's pockets is gay. Because there's no reason for a man to be worried about another man's pockets unless he owes them money. A woman I can understand because they want to know how they're going to be taken care of. But I've always said it, a man worried about another man's bills and pockets, it's like worrying about what's behind that man's zipper. So I'm not answering really any man asking me about my bread because I consider it not the most masculine thing, even if it's in the algorithm.
Let me tell y'all something. When it comes to Dame Dash, love him or hate him, one thing you can't say is that he's not transparent. Every time he speaks, he drops something valuable, especially when it comes to ownership, entrepreneurship, and financial independence. But this time, it's deeper than just business talk. Because today, we're not just talking about the culture, we're talking about the cost of standing on principle in a system built to tear you down. The headlines have been flying. Dame Dash ordered to forfeit assets. Dame Dash owes $800,000. Dame Dash drowning in lawsuits. But the truth? It's way more layered than that. See, this ain't just a story about legal battles or financial setbacks. This is a real conversation about wealth management, intellectual property, and how even when you try to do the right thing, the system can still come for you. And the crazy part? Dame Dash says he learned the game from none other than 50 Cent, a man who's mastered the art of turning losses into leverage. We're going to get into how these lawsuits really came about, what Dame Dash says is really going on behind the scenes, and why the headlines don't tell the full story. And trust, when you hear how the government and lawyers get involved, and what Dame Dash says about people pocket watching him, you'll understand why this ain't your typical fall from grace story. This is a masterclass in how to survive the business world when everybody's betting on your downfall. Now I'm about to play this clip for y'all, but before I do, I need you to like, leave your thoughts down below in the comment section, and subscribe. Let's get into it.
But speaking of that, right, money and generational wealth, the news that broke that you was in debt by $800K and you had to give up your assets. Can you speak on that? Like, is that true or no?
Well, I think what people are not understanding is, again, I run my family office. I don't own it. My family owns it. And since 2015, I haven't done anything other than run my family's office. And like 2019, I just started to go to schools with the OSG and help Raquel sell the books that she's written that get kids' cognitive skills up, which no one talks about for some reason. And I don't have too much in my name. So the things that are in my name are companies that I don't know that even exist, that don't make money. They're from years ago. And yeah, it's an $800. I want you to put this in perspective. And I'm just going to say allegedly because I don't feel like getting sued again. But this lawyer, Chris Brown, not the singer, has taken, I've been to trial with him on at least 4 different cases, but all over the country with different people testifying on different cases, but they all seem to work together allegedly. And in 4 cases, I've lost, or judgment wise, it's 800 grand. Now, if you look at other people that are on trial, their legal fees are like $1 million a month. When they have to settle out, they settle out for 30 million and better. For 4 trials and a lawyer moving around trying to sue me, and again, legal fees. So you got to think about what that legal lawyer that's suing me, how much time he's spending. For him to only win $800,000 is a W in anybody that's a real businessman's world. And I'm like, all right, if you won, and what I lost on was defamation. So the cases were, one, and again, I'm going to say allegedly just in case I say anything wrong, but I directed a movie for a favor for a woman called E.W. Brooks in North Carolina. And I directed it, and I went, sat through the edit, and I did it for equity. I said, I'll do you a favor. You can't afford to pay me. Your budget isn't even what I would get paid. But what I'll do, because you're being an entrepreneur, is I'll direct the movie, I'll use my cameras, I'll use my resources and produce it, and then we'll bust it down. When we finished it, she was actually allegedly aggressive about me promoting the movie, which I did. But once I did that, I got a lawsuit for copyright infringement. Now, let me tell you where the lawsuit came from. So I did the same situation, and what's this dude's name? Tony White. Tony White, who was introduced to me by Dr. What's that dude's name? Damn, I forgot his name just now. But anyway, I was introduced to him, and he asked me to direct a movie, and I'm like, you can't pay me. What's the budget? He said $250. So I said, I'll direct it, use my resources, produce it, my cameras, and we'll bust it down. Or we'll deal with whatever percentage it is. While I'm on the movie set, and I have footage of me directing the whole movie. While I'm on the movie set, I realize that $250 is not being spent and that, he's lying. But because I've used all my resources, I'll pay for the rest of the movie. Another party steps in, Muddy Waters, and they say, well, he lied to me too, but let me pay for the edit so I can stay in. Pause. So we edited. I edited from my house for a year. And we started a new movie, and we had a disagreement about the new movie. So what he did was had the editor send him the edit, and behind my back, he went and copyrighted it. And then they started to put new directors on it, or say that other people directed it, allegedly, which is this guy, Josh, and whoever, who never directed. He was like my. Either way, they were starting to promote the movie. I called my lawyer, and I'm like, yo, handle that. But in the meantime, thinking there's freedom of speech, I say some things. My man Bootsy tells me something that somebody, some wrong information, and I posted it up, and I get a defamation charge, as well as a copyright infringement. But they do it in New York, even though it happened in LA. So this same lawyer goes and solicits, I think, and I'm going to say allegedly, goes and gets E.W. Brooks, who I don't recall having such problems with. But then they give me, he represents her for this lawsuit and also the other lawsuit. And they do it all in New York, which means I got to fly all the witnesses to New York. You understand what I'm saying? So, again, that was one of the lawsuits. And then another lawsuit from again, allegedly, this woman that he took, that accused me of sexual, like a sexual thing. I go through a whole trial, and again, she wins $15,000 on defamation and loses on everything else. So he's working really hard to collect money, and I'm like, go ahead. When they put the thing to auction, the government, because also I owe the government money, and I'm not going to say it's not my fault, but I did have an accountant that was supposed to be handling that, and I paid them to do it. I had that kind of income coming in, but he didn't pay my taxes correctly, so I had to deal with that. So the government stepped in like, you can't get that $800,000 before he owes us $20 million. So either way, anything that goes to auction, the government comes in and gets it anyway. And this lawyer knows this, but he still continues to do that. But the stuff they're chasing, or the stuff that what happened is I said, yeah, I own these companies. I just don't get any income from them. But they haven't been put to auction yet, but they could be. But you got to realize something. I learned this from 50 Cent. If you have a lawsuit, you could just file. It goes away. It's not a big deal. Donald Trump did it 6 times. So if I really felt that kind of pressure, and I think I already told the court, I'm a file. So you could go through all the motion and say all these things and sell things that don't have value, but I'm still file. It's just going to be a lot of work. So what I'm curious to see is what that lawyer is telling his partners, because he just spent 10 years and $800,000 isn't even legal fees for 4 trials. And how is that a loss to me? So instead of people celebrating the genius of what's going on, They look at it a different way. But at the end of the day, people celebrating my bills is, to me, an honor that people are worried about. I have such an expectation for years of having such an enormous amount of wealth that if, let's say, a judgment doesn't get paid or taxes, someone thinks that reflects on my personal business acumen or how I've mismanaged money. But to me, any dude, regardless, that talks about another man's pockets is gay. Because there's no reason for a man to be worried about another man's pockets unless he owes them money. A woman I can understand because they want to know how they're going to be taken care of. But I've always said it, a man worried about another man's bills and pockets, it's like worrying about what's behind that man's zipper. So I'm not answering really any man asking me about my bread because I consider it not the most masculine thing. Even if it's in the algorithm, it's still, to me, not masculine.
What Dame Dash said in this interview, that was a lesson, not just in business, but in growth, in maturity, and in understanding how to play the long game. Because it's easy to clap back. It's easy to point fingers when you feel like people are coming at your reputation or your finances. But instead, Dame Dash broke it down with financial clarity, legal awareness, and a level of transparency that we don't usually get from people in his position. And what really stood out to me, what I respect the most, is that he gave 50 Cent his credit. Now let's keep it 100. A few months ago, Dame Dash and 50 Cent were going at it publicly. It got real messy, real ego-driven. But the fact that Dame Dash can now say, yo, I learned something from 50 Cent. I took notes on how he handled lawsuits, how he played the legal game. That's major. That's emotional intelligence, and that's how you know he's still learning, still evolving, and still trying to pass on generational knowledge. We need more of that, especially in this culture where pride and ego ruin more opportunities than failure ever will. The fact that Dame Dash could recognize a business strategy in somebody he previously clashed with, that's real leadership. Because at the end of the day, it's not about who wins the argument. It's about who wins the war of longevity. And for everybody watching this thinking, man, Dame's losing, he's broke, he's falling off, you're missing the bigger picture here. This man built empires. He understands the value of asset protection, corporate structure, and playing the game with smart leverage. That $800,000 judgment, that's just a chapter. That's not the whole book. And if you think that defines him, you're not really paying attention to how generational wealth works. Look, we gotta stop celebrating people's downfalls and start studying their resilience. Because Dame Dash has been counted out a dozen times, and every time he finds a way to stay relevant. Not just in hip hop, but in ownership culture, in intellectual property, and how to move with power and silence. So salute to Dame Dash for speaking up, not folding, and for giving game while still giving credit. And salute to 50 Cent too, because clearly his influence is being felt in places most people would never expect. Y'all tell me what y'all think about what Dame Dash said down below in the comment section. And make sure you like and subscribe. Peace.